Hey everyone, Duke here, and today we're taking a first look at the seasonal artifact for Season of the Deep. To start off, as usual, in column 1 we have kind of our basic champion mods. This season we're going to have Anti-Barrier Auto Rifle, Unstoppable Hand Cannon, Overload Scout Rifle, Overload Trace Rifle, and Unstoppable Glaives. Overall, some pretty decent options, but of course we have a lot of subclass modifiers and subclass abilities now that can also deal with champions, so we have a lot more flexibility than we've used to have in the past, but these are definitely not bad options if you just want to have a always there go-to champion mod for an activity. Also note that all of these weapons will have a 25% damage buff in any activity that has the overcharged modifier active. Does not matter if it's actually like champions or you're actually specifically stunning a champion. If it has the overcharged modifier, you can use any of these weapons and get a 25% damage buff for the entire season. In column 2, we have some similar mods to last season, except this time with Arc instead of Solar. We have authorized mods Arc, authorized mods Void, and authorized mods Strand, which are all going to give your armor mods that affect those specific weapons to have some discounted armor costs for the energy that will be used. We also have authorized mods Melee, which allows your melee armor mods to be significantly discounted. And then finally we have Technicolor Siphon, which means that your Strand and Arc Siphon mods will be combined, so you can kind of use a mix of Strand and Arc and still get the Siphon for both if that's something you'd like to do. Column 3 is where we start getting into the a little bit more seasonal specific mods. Starting off, we have Improved Unraveling, which will increase the amount of damage dealt by unraveling a target. So if you're using strand weapons and you're getting some unraveling rounds, could be a nice little boost here. Next we have Deeper Origins, which will greatly improve the benefits provided by the Unsated Hunger, Nanotech, Tracer Rockets, Harmonic Resonance, and Noble Deeds origin traits. Next we have Onto the Breach, which defeating a Void debuffed target will create a Void Breach while your Void subclass is equipped. I would assume there will be some sort of cooldown on this. If not, it is very, very, very strong. If there is kind of the basic built-in cooldown, I think it's still going to be very, very strong. Next we've got Electric Armor, which will allow you to stay amplified longer while your Arc subclass is equipped. It does seem like this season's kind of focused on Arc, Void, and Strand, kind of how last season was more Void, Solar, and Strand. So definitely going to be interesting with some of the mods that we've got here. Going into another Arc mod, we've got Thunderous Retort, where you will get bonus Arc super damage if you cast it while either critically wounded or while amplified. So if you pair this with Electric Armor, where you're amplified longer, you're going to have a bigger window to use your super and get that extra bonus damage. Next we have column 4, Strand Soldier. Your Strand weapons will gain unraveling rounds whenever you gain Woven Mail while your Strand subclass is equipped. Woven Mail is kind of a big part of the Strand subclass, and again, if we kind of pair that back with column 3, Improved Unraveling, all of these unraveling rounds that you're going to be getting are going to be doing increased damage. So you can pair these really, really well together with some Strand weapons while on a Strand subclass if you want to pair that with each other. Next we have Overcharged Armory, which goes again kind of pairing with Deeper Origins. The weapons with those same origin traits, Unsated Hunger, Nanotech, Tracer Rockets, Harmonic Resonance, and Noble Deeds, will all be overcharged weapons when that modifier is active. So again, just like the weapons in column 1, all of these weapons will give you a 25% damage buff whenever the overcharged modifier is active in an activity. Doesn't matter if you're pairing it with the surge or not. And again, just going over super quickly, a lot of people get confused. For anything that has overcharged and in modifier surges, not the boot surges, but the modifier surge, you cannot combine those. You cannot stack them. So if you have any overcharged weapon, that's already the 25% damage boost. You don't even have to actually combine that with the surge. You don't have to have the correct surge to then get that boost. It's not going to help you if you do. This allows for a lot more potential flexibility if you want to be using one of these weapons anyway. Next mod we have is Protective Breach, which will allow for picking up a Void Breach to give you an Overshield or refresh your existing Overshield. And like I said, there's going to be some kind of Void combinations, or there's going to be some Strand combinations. This is obviously one of the Void subclass combinations. Compare this with Onto the Breach and be able to get more Void Breaches, which then give you more Overshields. Going to be a very interesting combination. Next we have Countercharge, gain a stack of armor charge when you stun a champion. Nothing crazy exciting, but not bad if there's going to be a lot of champions and you want a lot of stacks of armor charge for your build. Definitely a worthwhile and useful mod here. And finally, the final fourth column mod is Amped Up, where you will gain damage resistance while amplified. This is going to, again, pair very, very well with Electric Armor and Thunderous Retort with some of the other Arc subclass mods here. I love living. It's crazy. Crazy concept, right? I love being alive in Destiny. So anything that's going to give me more survivability, especially on Arc that I feel like has a little bit less survivability than some, like, you know, Void with Devour or Solar with some of the healing, extra damage resistance, while Amplified is going to be very, very nice here. Definitely a must-use mod if you're going to want to be running anything Arc-specific subclasses this season. And finally, we have column 5, Conductive Cosmic Needle. Targets affected by Strand debuffs will take increased damage from Arc and Void abilities. This is interesting. It's kind of like a little specific. It's also going to depend on, like, again, damage stacking tends to be very, I'm not going to say random, but, like, it's not very consistent on, like, what can stack, what can't stack, etc., etc. So if, like, will this stack with, like, other debuffs? Maybe, maybe not. Again, Strand debuffs with unraveling rounds and some of the other unraveling, you know, doing more damage by unraveling a target, and then your Strand weapons gaining unraveling rounds when you have Woven Mail. Like, this can combine very well with that, but it's only helping then if someone else is running Arc and Void, and it's only helping their abilities. Like, you know, if it was like weapon damage too, that would be potentially very nuts. With abilities, you know, maybe, like, it could be useful, you know, if other people are running Thunder Crash, or maybe if Chaos Rage comes back, or, you know, the Arc Throwing Staff. Like, you know, you got some pretty good Arc damage supers that could be doing extra damage depending on how big of a buff this is, if you know, if you're running some Strand debuffs. But we'll have to see. Technically, you could also debuff for yourself, you know, if you have Strand weapons that are debuffing, even if you're not on Strand, it could still debuff for your own abilities. So again, interesting there. This is, I feel like this is a mod that's either going to be, like, insane or kind of eh. So hopefully it's insane. Hopefully it's a really good one, but we'll have to see kind of how that plays out. Next, we have Shock and Awe. Arc Final Blows. While you're amplified, summon a burst of lightning that damages and jolts targets. I think this could be potentially very, 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 very nuts. This is going to work, and again, it's Arc Final Blows, so as long as you're amplified, any sort of Arc Final Blows doesn't have to be Arc, like, subclass kills, but, you know, things like Trinity Ghoul, things like Forbearance, things like Thunderlord. This is gonna, like, amplify, for lack of a better term, the amount of ability to kill things, do damage with those things. Like, this could be very, very, very interesting in terms of just being able to, like, slay the world with some Arc things this season. So definitely another interesting mod here. We got the next mod here, Supernova. Picking up a Void Breach will cause the next source of Void damage that you do to create a large weakening pulse. This is going to be a crazy, crazy combo with Protective Breach and with Onto the Breach, as basically if you can get one Void Breach starting, like, you just get one Void Breach to start, you pick it up. Now the next time you do any Void damage, you create a large weakening pulse. That can be with your Void subclass, it can be with a Void weapon, whatever it is. So you weaken with a pulse when you do your next Void damage, as long as you pick up one Void Breach to start. Now, when you pick up that Void Breach, you're also going to get an Overshield, or refresh your existing Overshield from Protective Breach. And then, because you've debuffed things, a large weakening pulse, you've debuffed things, now when you defeat any of those things that got debuffed, as long as you're on a Void subclass, which, you know, you're going to want to be for this, you will then create a new Void Breach, which then you can pick up again, get a new Overshield, and make another large weakening pulse the next time you do Void damage, and you just repeat that process. Like, this is really, really, really cool, really interesting. Again, there's, like, kind of a Void setup with these three mods. There's kind of a Strand setup with some of the mods. We got kind of an Arc setup with some of the different mods here, and then we also have, we're going to skip ahead for a quick second, Lightning Strikes twice. After throwing an Arc Grenade, gain increased grenade recharge for a short time. Again, that's obviously going to pair with the Arc setup, and Arc Final Blows will extend the duration of this benefit. So again, you pair it with something like Trinity Ghoul, Forbearance, Thunderlord. Now you have grenades, you have your AoE weapons, you have your Shock and Awe to go with that, is assuming you're amplified, and you have your electric armor to go along with that. Like, it's crazy. Like, you definitely have, like, you know, your arcs, you got three very specific different setups that you can do for each of these subclasses that are all going to be very, very strong in their own ways. And our final mod here is a unique one called Squad Goals, where performing finishers will do unique things for your team. If you're on an Arc subclass and you're amplified, if you do a finisher, you're going to give everyone near you amplified. If you're on a Strand subclass and you already have Woven Mail, you're going to give everyone near you Woven Mail. If you're on a Void subclass and you have Devour, you're going to give everyone near you Devour. So like very, very good like utility mod here, very like team oriented mod, and gonna be interesting. Again, like this is one of those things where what does nearby allies mean, how close do they actually have to be, but you know, if it's got at least a decent, reasonable range, I think this is going to be good. The thing is, too, though, is you're going to only be able to pick 2 mods in column 5 here, and unless something crazy has changed, you're going to get 12 total mods and only 2 in the final column in order to, you know, fit everything, because you have to get 10 before you can even pick 1 in column 5. So I feel like if you're on Strand or you're on Void, you can very easily pick this one, right? Like you're going to pick the Strand, you can Conductive Cosmic Needle, and this one. Or if you're on Void, you're going to pick Supernova and this one. If you're on Arc, I don't think you can really pick this one. Like, I don't think that's going to really be a reasonable option unless... Yeah, I don't really think so. And I don't think, like, giving your team Amplified, I think giving your team Devour or Woven Mail is, like, really, really good. Amplified, honestly, really only works that well if you're kind of doing stuff with it as well. Like, if you're already kind of being a part of that. If your whole team, I guess, was running Arc and, like, you know, Amplified was really actively helping each person on your team, that's one thing. But, you know, anyone's going to value from Woven Mail. Everyone's going to value from Devour. Not everyone's going to necessarily get value from Amplified just straight up. And again, Shock and Awe and Lightning Strikes Twice being in this column, if you're already on Arc, which you'd have to be to get that benefit anyway, I feel like you're going to want to use those. So again, I think this one's good for if you're running Devour, or if you're running Void, or if you're running Strand. If you're on Arc, again, maybe, but I think the other 2 are too good. Again, I think the one benefit of if you were running this mod as an Arc subclass is that then allows other people to use Shock and Awe, as you'll be able to amplify them even if they're not on Arc, and then if they kill things with Arc weapons, again, some of the top tier ones we've already talked about, that will then, you know, create that burst of lightning and damage and jolt things. Like, again, I could see that being very, very good potentially, but it just it's tough. It's tough to know for sure, and it's going to be a very like team oriented option, and you know, that's kind of seems like the point of this mod. Again, it's also going to depend on the range. Again, like if you have to be right on top of somebody to get these things, going to be less useful. And again, on Arc, you've already got 2 really good options. But I don't know, I'm excited for this one. This one's like really, really interesting, especially if your team like builds into it. I think is going to be really, really cool. So I'm definitely got some unique mods this season. I don't think there's any like, you know, there's no Bricks from Beyond, right? There's no Bricks from Beyond this season where you're going to have just like infinite heavy, but like in terms of like you build into something, like you build into the Arc things, you build into the Void things, you build into the Strand things, they pair really, really well together, and I'm excited to have kind of some different chances and different builds to go with this season. I hope this video was helpful and interesting, leading you into Season of the Deep, and as always, thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.